Our data indicates 100% positive outcome, which is incredible, right? It's 100% positive outcome with an average of 29% in decrease of symptoms, which is fantastic. That's what we want, right?
I think what I'm hearing, which is beautiful, is that even as a person who has done yoga and then doesn't do yoga on a regular basis, I always thought it was more about, flexibility and good for your body physically. But what you've enlightened me to is the impact it has on your mind and how it can change your thoughts and calm your emotions and anxieties and help with sleep. And for me, the help with the folks who are in addiction and in recovery and are trying to get that sense of self-esteem and purpose, it just sounds beautiful to me.
But what we've done is kind of unique. We've taken symptoms that were common among substance use disorders and mental health disorders throughout the DSM, and we've integrated specific yoga interventions that focus not only on the body, but on the brain to hit certain parts that will alleviate symptoms. So that's what our research is really about. We're trying to focus on ways that we can hit certain parts of the brain to emotionally regulate and to teach patients new ways to move forward, cope with anxiety, cope with depression, minimize relapse. I mean, from working in a hospital, I can tell you the recidivism rates are incredible. The amount of people that come in and out of treatment, it's alarming, right? So we're trying to incorporate something that they can take with them and that they can practice even when they're not in our facility anymore.
This has been one of the better meetings, and it's so hopeful. You bring hope to the community, to prevention, and to people in recovery. So thank you. So everyone knows me, I hope. Shireen Schultz, I'm the Director for United for Prevention in Passaic County. Good morning, welcome. We were just talking about the beautiful rain we're having this morning and how much we need that. So thank you for the rain that's coming down and putting out some of those fires. All right, Ramki, it's all yours.
Thank you, Shireen. And my sincere gratitude to all of you, for being today. And we are here to, exchange our views on health, particularly mental health, substance use, disorder. That's the purpose. By the end of this session, probably there are three things I attempt to communicate. Number one, what is the scientific evidence or evidence available for yoga's, implication, particularly in our space of, mental health and substance use disorder. Number two, a bit of insight into how yoga works, and that's extremely important because if we are providing the service or the therapy or the treatment, it's important for us to understand how it works. The third, the last, obviously the most important one, what is in it for all of us, personally and professionally. So 3 points, that's what I intend, communicating during the event today. It was a funeral ceremony. The guest list included who's who of our country, including the President of the United States. Close to about 500 people. The deceased ensured that all the guests get a parting gift from him. The gift was a book on yoga. I don't know whether you can see it. There you go. You can? Good. Thank you. Everyone. Any guess? Who was the person? Who was the deceased person? You can unmute and you can share. Okay, no problem. Let me give you one more hint. He was an unwanted child. His biological parents had a good time, but did not expect the child. So even before the child was born, the child was put up for adoption. A childless couple, kind enough to adopt the boy, took care of him. Excellent, very well. Boy completed his school, went into college, a turning point in life, lot of emotions, got onto drugs. Just not one, two. Obviously, the education started going down. He started dropping subjects. Okay, with, age plus the neurological system actively working with the support of substances. He had a child with his girlfriend. No job, no money. So all typical, we are all from the mental health and substance use industry. We are familiar with, drugs, complicated relationships, dropping out of school or work, no money, typical scenario. As luck would favor him, he encounters yoga. He was very intrigued, very keen to know. He started asking too many questions. So the person who was interacting with him told him, go to India. That's where you can get these kind of answers. He took it seriously and he went to India. And it's a long story. Cut it and come back. When he came back, he was a completely transformed man. Not only he was a transformed man, he transformed everything around. My life, all your lives. When I say all your lives, all your lives. The lives of the entire world. Want to make a guess? No. He invented personal computer. Those days, computers were huge, large systems. If some of you are old enough to know, you know what I'm talking about. Mainframe, mini, and things like that. He invented graphical user interface. He invented smartphone. Okay. He's none other than our own good friend, Steve Jobs of Apple Computer. I'm going to share my screen. Shireen, can I?
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen. Go ahead.
So it is one of his first inventions, a microcomputer, and his traditional dress, a jean pant, a black top, turtleneck. Okay, and see how he is sitting, the yoga pose. Okay, so the point here is a person may be drowned with problems, substances. If he really absorbs yoga, he can completely transform not only his life, he can transform the world. Okay. I'm sharing my screen. You can see that this is obviously from National Institute of Health. Talks about, I'm going to be sharing some of the research papers published in National Institute of Health, PubMed. Of course, you can Google it and find out. On top of it, if you need the list of research papers available from NIH, consolidated all of them, a copy is available with Shireen. You can contact her. She can forward you that particular set of research papers. This one talks about women undergoing substance use disorder treatment. The research paper says evidence supports the use of yoga in SUD. Next one, very interesting, trauma exposed. unhoused women with substance use disorder. Between 71 and 89% of the people reported yoga, meditation is a great deal of help. Next one, relapse prevention, because we are talking about not only cure, we are also talking about prevention. Okay, it says the approach offers support to individuals in SUD treatment. Okay, close to about few hundred papers are available related to SUD. When you come to mental health or other health areas, they run into thousands. At this point in time, what we are seeing, what we are hearing, stories about Steve Jobs or the research papers, they are all secondary data from a research perspective. I would like to invite Gabby. I'm fortunate enough to work with her for the last 2 years to give the first-hand information about what is her experience. Okay, so Gabby, over to you. I'm going to stop sharing. You can start sharing.
All right, thank you, Ramki. So yeah, pretty much like Ramki said, we have been working together for about 2 years now. I'll introduce myself one more time. So Gabrielle Visconi, I am a licensed social worker here at Bergen Newbridge on an inpatient co-occurring dual diagnosis rehab program. So a little background just about Newbridge itself, right? We are a behavioral health hospital, so we deal with a lot of various populations from young children to adults, geriatric patients, long-term care patients, and patients with substance use and mental health disorders, of course, as well. So pretty much what we have been doing here in our program here is we've implemented a yoga-based practice for our patients with mental health and substance use disorders. So pretty much from like 2013 till now, we started with just implementing the activity itself to see how patients reacted to it. And then as patients started to do it a little bit more, they started to express decreases in anxiety symptoms, and they felt a little bit better in terms of like sleep, and their mood was improving and everything. So we kind of developed this hypothesis of yoga can improve those symptoms of anxiety, depression, maybe even potentially the cravings for substances, whether it's alcohol or some type of drug. So then fast forward to this year, we did an informal trial of the yoga implementation. So yeah, pretty much with the informal trial, we were pretty much just gauging with a pre-yoga and post-yoga evaluation for basically self-reporting of what they feel in that moment prior to the session, and then they do the same one of how they feel afterwards. Now we've analyzed a lot of data from that, but then we did do an IRB formal research presentation request. So for the past almost a whole year, we've gathered now all formal data. We've analyzed all of it with much improvement, at least from what we've seen. So pretty much the patients that we serve here, it's male and female, and others, ages 18 and up. So of any race, ethnicity, any mental health disorder. Here we do deal with populations that have severe mental health. So that could be schizoaffective, bipolar, schizophrenia, major depressive, all of those types of disorders. And then also the substances. So that's alcohol, heroin, cannabis, cocaine, benzos, fentanyl, xylazine now is a big thing too. So it's a lot of patients with a very extensive background. So pretty much what we have seen here, we gauge on their physical pain, their anxiety, their depressive symptoms, feelings of guilt, their belief in themselves, them feeling if their life has a purpose or not. So, and pretty much like the pre-yoga is here, the red bars here. So you'll see like physical pain is usually max at like a 3.5 pretty much. Afterwards, in terms of the physical pain, at least, sometimes they may just have overdone it in terms of stretching. It's not anything crazy extensive, right? When we think of yoga, we're thinking of these intense like movements and stretches and being upside down, downward dog, all that kind of stuff. But this is more of a very basic, more mindfulness breathing techniques of yoga. So some people, we do, like I said, with different mental health disorders, sometimes maybe even the anxiety can go up. Because in terms of like silence, some patients can't sit with silence. But it has gotten better. It has improved. So you'll see like on a scale of like 1 to 5, 1 is like very bad. 5 is very good or great. So you'll see that with the physical pain, it went from like so neutral to good, right? So you'll see that it does improve afterwards, after the fact. So in terms of feedback from the patients, right? Some patients say, it's very peaceful. They want to do it more often, more frequently. What we've been doing is 2 times a week, 1-hour sessions with the patients, and it's optional. The research is like randomization, but feedback-wise, they feel like they have a purpose. They want to do it on their own outside of doing the actual session in person. Their sleep is improving slightly. Maybe they're not, maybe they're going to sleep faster than they normally do. Maybe they want a little bit more like soft music to help them kind of focus more, right? So we get a lot of feedback from the patients, and it's mostly very positive. So that is my presentation. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. So the first part of my presentation is about evidence of yoga working. Whatever the secondary data is secondary data. The primary data, the feeling. So that's what you heard from Gabby. So I'm going to once again share my screen. We are going to the second part of our presentation, which talks about prevention, cure, and prevent reoccurrence. So as we are getting into the topic, I want to talk briefly about what is addiction. Very, very, very sensitive topic to discuss. Am I addicted? Yes, of course I'm addicted. I'm addicted to yoga. I'm addicted to probably tea. I'm addicted to, nutritious food. Some addictions are good, some addictions are not good. But how it happens? For example, someone gets into, drinking, say, beer. The very first sip they have it, invariably they spit it out and says it stinks. It's not tasty. So it's the case with someone, smokes a cigarette. The first puff is not a pleasant one, but gradually the mind develops taste for it and it becomes dependent. The tolerance increases. Okay, as the tolerance increases, one has to consume more and the journey continues. Okay, and they lose focus in their family, they lose focus in their life. And that's a life purpose that, Gabby talked about. And finally, they end up in a hospital. Those are the patients that we deal with. The patients we come across, Gabby as well as Frank, they work with, are very challenging patients. Helping them feel better, that's the job of yoga. So here I want to talk about some components of yoga. So when we look at our body, from the modern science perspective, from the modern medical perspective, we have 11 integrated systems. We have cardio, we have pulmonary, we have integumentary, we have neural, things like that. But yoga looks as a human body from a different perspective. These 11 integrated systems are layer 1, which is physical. The second layer is known as energy layer, Shakti. The Kundalini, the chakras, all of them come under that particular category. The third layer is mental, also emotional. The fourth one is intellect, pure intellect. Okay. And the fifth one is conscious. It is not, being conscious awake. The science of conscious is a big subject today. Yeah. And is being talked about. So in our treatment, how do we provide treatment to our patients, who have this challenge? They are really in a messed up state, mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, in all the angles. So we take the energy layer and the intellect layer and work on the other, first and the third layer, which is physical layer, and the mental and the emotional layer. Okay, so basically we elevate the energy, we improve the intellectual thinking and bring down the physical pain and the mental pain and give them the glimpse of the conscious layer. in about 45 minutes to an hour, you will see a huge difference in the way they perceive about themselves. Okay. I mean, for the people who are experts in yoga here, what we do is we start with prefrontal cortex. This particular portion of our brain is the executive brain that we have, which distinguishes us from the rest of the creatures, rest of the animals. Okay, so we send excitatory signals to that particular portion of the brain. Okay, so the brain, executive brain, is ready to receive. Then we energize the people. We detox both stomach as well as the lungs. Okay, and bring them to the mindful state. Get into a bit of meditation and be there in NSDR. NSDR is also known as non-sleep deep rest. It's a name actually for something called Yoga Nidra. Okay, that's what we practice. Invariably, when a person comes to the hospital for the first time, when we talk about yoga, every time I ask them the same question: what do you think about yoga? When it is me, yoga. So he was a vet, okay? But after some time, he completely changed. And after that, we had a very good pickup and improvement. So the way in which yoga works is very simple. We realize people what they are. A human life is very rare to get. Focus on the things that you need to focus on. Self-actualize, self-realize. You are not meant for all these things. You are meant for a different purpose. Understand your purpose. And do these routines like energizing yourself, being mindful, meditate on yourself. So we work on physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual health, which are completely written as a book. It's all available. We deploy those techniques for those conditions to an extent that I can say that there is a book that I follow. One of the persons who is present here, her name is Vishalakshi. She practices that. She actually shared a lot of information with me. The statement goes, for the purpose of, since it's being recorded, I'll tell you, Kallunna vendam tane kaitarum means there is no need to have external intoxication. You can create the same intoxications level through yoga. So we adopt some of them. So they don't feel that they are completely withdrawn. They still get a feel of that. Okay. So those are the techniques we use in the treatment. That's what, typical treatment is. First, we saw about the evidence. Next one, we'll look at how yoga works. Believe me, if modern science that we are practicing today has so much of information available, yoga is probably 5,000 to 6,000 years old. I'm not qualified to comment on the period or even maybe older, because the human beings have been existing over 300,000 years. The taking care of health is a very important component. So the yoga may be even older than that. Okay, but there is a lot of information available. I'm sharing this information because I want you to be aware that such information is available. Finally, let's come to the last portion of our presentation, what it means to you. Very heavy subject, so let's handle it. I'll divide it into two categories. Will yoga solve my problem today? I have bill to pay. Will it let me pay the bill? I have that problem. I have this problem. Will it solve my problem today? That's what I want. I want acute, instant. I want instant solution for an acute problem. Let me once again go back to Steve Jobs. I'm sure you've heard of this story. His name was John Scully. He was the CEO of Pepsi. Steve Jobs went and hired him for Apple. He, John Scully, and Steve did not, see eye to eye on many things. John Scully and the board removed Steve Jobs from Apple. Steve Jobs was jobless sometime. He could have easily gone back to drugs. Thought that all that he had to do is open a bottle or go to the drug and pick it up, and could have drowned himself to get out of the worry. You can't have more pain than this. Instead, he went to yoga. He started looking at what all the other options available. Thus, he created Pixar. Tell me which brand, which image, which character that we cannot associate with. All of them are creations of Steve Jobs. So it opened up a new door for him, a new avenue for him. So yoga does not necessarily solve my problem instantaneously. I'm not talking about the ones which we are practicing in the hospital. I'm talking about real, social problems. But it can open doors for you to address something bigger and better. Here I'm going to talk something on a personal front, in a different aspect. Our body has 30 trillion cells. That's what the science says. My body, this 165 pounds, has 30 trillion cells. Each cell communicate with each other. Number one. Number two, I am connected to my environment. The plants, the trees give me oxygen with which I live. I have an exchange program with them. I'm giving them back carbon dioxide with which they live. I live in a community. I live in a society. I live in a universe. Yoga constantly reminds you of your place. Yoga is a proprioceptors. It tells you where you stand in the universe all the time. It gives you the balance. That is the core strength of yoga. Once you realize, I use the word very carefully, realize, actualize, self-actualization, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the topmost, self-actualization. Then you identify the purpose of your life and you start pursuing that. Once you get onto that journey, you are not bothered about anything. Whatever is available to eat, you need, approximately 1,500 to 2,000 calories. That's what you care about. You don't care about what kind of a color dress you wear and put a perfume, not put the perfume, what others say, what social media says, whether you have enough number of likes, followers. You are far above than that. You live for a purpose. Nobody can hurt you. When I say nobody can hurt you, nobody can hurt you without your permission. In fact, we practice this regularly. We tell people that don't use F word. Middle finger is not a bad finger. Okay. I would like to share one more information. I met somebody in the mall and I could recognize his face, but I really didn't know his name. He said, "Sir, I stopped using F word and it gives me a lot of peace of mind." Remember, all the crime that happens, even domestic, arguments and discussions, if you eliminate the word F, the temperature will come down substantially. So yoga enables you to manage yourself effectively. You don't hurt others and you don't hurt yourself. Okay. We can talk at length about some of the other aspects. On a professional front, how yoga can help. I would like to invite Frank. Frank, the stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Frank Russo. Again, I am a licensed social worker and licensed clinical alcohol drug counselor. I've been in the field for the past decade. Just a little background information. I started off working in outpatient treatment for Bergen County Health Department in an outpatient in Hackensack, and transitioned to Newbridge Medical Center, where I have experience in withdrawal management, and on a short-term rehabilitation unit now with co-occurring disorders, and private practice. So before I even go into things, I just wanted to share some statistics that are out there. So the information that I'm going to provide is from SAMHSA. SAMHSA reports that within the last year, 1 out of 3 adults were diagnosed with a mental health disorder or a substance use disorder. 46% of young adults age 18 to 25 were also diagnosed with either a substance use disorder or mental health disorder. And within the last year, 12.3 million adults age 18 and older contemplated the idea of suicide, with 3.5 million adults making plans for suicide and 1.7 million people attempting suicide. I share that information just to show the trend of mental health and addiction and what's going on in our society, our country, that it's not getting better despite all the interventions, all the help, and in ways it is and in ways it's not. But we have so much resources in the community that are available, and the rates can continually go up and up and up. So I met Ramki about 2 years ago, and we bonded over our passion to help people, just in general, right? Not, I happen to work in mental health and addiction, but the goal is to really help people in an organic way to live a lifestyle that's suitable to them, their families, and be a productive member back into the society. So we started off with an idea and we ran with it, and we started doing informal yoga research on our unit with permission from the hospital. The data was really good, and then we got permission from our hospital board to move forward with formal research. So what we do is Gabrielle, appreciate you sharing. Gabby shared some information in regards to the individual data. But what we're doing is we're using movement, breathing techniques, and contemplation as a way to integrate holistic treatment into the field that we're already in, right? We have medical interventions, we have medication interventions, we have our regular clinical interventions of group therapy, individual therapy, which we don't interrupt. We just added yoga intervention into that. So I think for myself, and one of the biggest assets that I've noticed in adding this is our patients' ability to emotionally regulate, right? A lot of times our patients are coming from the community, they're coming from incarceration, they're coming from withdrawal management, they're in a constant state of fight or flight, right? It's really difficult to sit down with somebody and start working with them when they're all over the place. So we have medication interventions which are helpful, but we added this yoga intervention, and we started to see just changes right away. What we're doing, our frequency is 2 times weekly for 45 minutes to an hour. And we're noticing that patients who are very aggressive are less aggressive after the intervention. We're noticing that patients are able to sleep better at nighttime. We're noticing improvements in self-belief and confidence, improvements in self-esteem, which is really important, right? How do you follow through with treatment and believe that you can sustain long-term recovery or manage symptoms of anxiety or depression or ever feel good again unless you actually have some self-belief, or you feel good about yourself, or you feel confident that there is a future out there waiting for you. So another important thing to recognize is that I think when anyone thinks of yoga, we think of a yoga studio, laying out a mat, people doing different types of stretches and breathing exercises, which is true. But what we've done is kind of unique. We've taken symptoms that were common among substance use disorders and mental health disorders throughout the DSM, and we've integrated specific yoga interventions that focus not only on the body, but on the brain to hit certain parts that will alleviate symptoms. So that's what our research is really about. We're trying to focus on ways that we can hit certain parts of the brain to emotionally regulate and to teach patients new ways to move forward, cope with anxiety, cope with depression, minimize relapse. I mean, from working in a hospital, I could tell you the recidivism rates are incredible. The amount of people that come in and out of treatment, it's alarming, right? So we're trying to incorporate something that they could take with them and that they can practice even when they're not in our facility anymore. Another benefit, I believe, to like our intervention is also the movement. Right? In traditional talk therapy, whether you're doing CBT, DBT, or whatever orientation you follow, we're talking to patients over and over again. Some of these patients have been in treatment. I mean, I have a patient now who's been in treatment over 20 times, right? Some of these patients have talked about their traumas over and over and over again. We're recognizing that through movement, through somatic therapy, that they're actually alleviating trauma. They're alleviating these signs without even having to rehash or talk about some things that they've been through. We're recognizing that through the breathing exercises that they're able to not only regulate, but it's also used as a detoxification along with medication management and other interventions done by the hospital. So another interesting fact is that, like Gabby shared, the patients that are engaged in the services are self-reporting their feelings before the intervention and after the intervention. Our data indicates 100% positive outcome, which is incredible, right? It's 100% positive outcome with an average of 29% in decrease of symptoms, which is fantastic. That's what we want, right? I think the goal for the future is to continue to do the research that we're doing, but also expand. You know, we have hopes, we have goals to expand into using technology, using smartwatches, using, I don't know if anyone knows what an Oura ring is, spirometers to measure different outcomes, to look at what's actually happening to somebody when they're experiencing a panic attack, what happens with their heart rate, what's happening with their blood pressure, what's happening with their breathing. So then we can actually incorporate these interventions and see how effective they truly are to not only the emotional health, you know, but also to their physiological, their response. So you know, I think another added component I just want to share before I wrap up is that the community aspect of it, right? We're allowing people to feel like they're part of something again. You know, you if anyone's, we're all in this field, right? So we know Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. There's a therapeutic value of these individuals getting together, sharing a common bond, and working towards a recovery goal or a life goal, whatever that may look like. And I feel like, you know, we've noticed that the same is happening even in our interventions twice weekly. Our patients are getting excited about Ramki coming in to perform the intervention. They're letting the new patients that come in know what they've experienced, and they're bringing people in, which is nice to see. People are walking around feeling alone, thinking that they're the only ones that are experiencing certain symptoms or certain thoughts. So from our standpoint, from being a clinician, it's wonderful to see that people are feeling as if they're part of a community and they're able to join in. You know, we also hope to not only utilize these interventions as prevention, but utilize them moving forward where we can create some type of peer support that's actually based on our yoga interventions for people to go out into the community and actually, you know, intervene in crisis situations, intervene in other situations that are necessary where they're trained in a proper way to manage. So I appreciate everyone's time. I know everyone has a busy schedule. And Ramki, I appreciate you. Thank you for asking me to come and share.
Thanks a lot, Frank. I know we are running out of time, so let me jump on to the final few words. Number one, yoga is not physical. Challenges, handicaps are not limitations. For the last few weeks, I'm doing yoga with hearing impaired at St. Joseph's Hospital in Patterson. You should listen to them, what they say. They feel the same effect. And how can you do meditation with a person who cannot hear? It is working. We are too early in the journey, but all that I want to say is, you know, my body is not flexible, rigid, you know, I can't meditate, my mind does not stay. Those are all not reasons. We are talking about personally for yourself. Yoga is very easy to adapt. Okay. And over to you, Sherry.
Thank you so much. Wow. I was busy taking notes, and I'm definitely going to go back to this recording and hear it again. So I want to open the room. I see some comments in the chat. If you want to just unmute and go directly to Ramki and just let's have a conversation. I see Linda. Linda, why don't you go ahead and share?
Thank you very much. I couldn't unmute myself. Just I wanted to mention, I've always been a person against yoga. I have 2 daughters who do it. They have fibromyalgia and different things, and they just can't live without it. However, at 75, I think I'm a little lazy. I'm pretty flexible, but I have very bad arthritis in my right ankle. I have bone on bone, no cartilage in my right knee. So that does limit me with, jumping and running around and stuff. But I have been doing chair yoga using the principles that you've discussed as a senior citizen, as well as core exercises for seniors. And I have found it's like taking your truck in for a lube job. It's really helpful. Like as we age, just getting up and down from a chair, walking without having stiff legs right away. So I really appreciate these reminders. And if we just do what we can do, 10 minutes a day in the beginning before we go crazy, I really believe this helps the mind and spirit. There's something about it that really helps. So I just wanted to mention that.
Point taken. I just want to quickly share with you, I work with a lot of senior adults. The oldest of all my patients is 94-year-old person who comes regularly for the yoga. Okay, and sees a range of motion improvement. Quite a number of people who walk with walkers, got rid of walkers, are able to be, there are 3 areas that we focus on as far as seniors are concerned. Number 1, their gait. Number 2, their respiratory health. Number 3, their mental health. In fact, I gave a presentation in National Council of Aging this May in Washington, and I've done extensive work on seniors' health. Next question, please.
Anybody have a question?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I know a couple of addicts that are trying to not just stay sober, but we're looking for some techniques for being anxious when they are trying to keep sobriety. Now, we know that it's been talked about that, yoga can help, but what advice would you give to a teenager that is considering yoga, but thinks it's a older person's strategy?
I think either Frank or Gabby should address this question. They have extensively worked with that population.
So the question was, what advice would I give to a teenager who's weary about participating? Was that the question?
I think a teenager who has an addiction problem, who's looking for techniques to reduce anxiety and has thought that yoga is only for old people.
Yeah, so we're working on actually getting into our adolescent program here at Newbridge Medical Center. We have a Teen Thrive program, and we're also they're starting a partial hospitalization program that we'll be implementing our services into. I think when it comes to the teenage population, it is difficult because sometimes teenagers think they know everything, and it's also they're not open and willing to try. But that's why we want to incorporate these interventions, because even forget a teenager, we have individuals that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old that are our patients that are also share that same common belief of like, why would I do this? This is not for me. This is something that, I've never done, until they actually try and participate. So I think the where we start with anybody who has any self-doubt is we encourage them to do something different to see the outcome. And I think once they experience it for themselves, then they can make a better informed decision on what to do moving forward. Also, like I said about the community, especially with teenagers, when we incorporate other peers and other people, they're more inclined to follow suit. So if they see their friends participating, or we can get a group of them to commit to trying something, then maybe that person's mind may change a little bit.
Can I add a couple of more words, my friend?
Absolutely.
See, we have gadgets available, and the teenagers are very much attached to gadgets.
Yeah.
And there are a good number of things that we can deliver to them, by which we are able to monitor what is their state and accordingly provide situation-specific yoga therapy. So things are possible, just to give an answer.
I think think what I'm hearing, which is beautiful, is that even as a person who has done yoga and then doesn't do yoga on a regular basis, I always thought it was more about, flexibility and good for your body physically. But what you've enlightened me to is the impact it has on your mind and how it can change your thoughts and calm your emotions and anxieties and help with sleep. And for me, the help with the folks who are in addiction and in recovery and are trying to get that sense of self-esteem and purpose, it just sounds beautiful to me. I mean, I know of people who have been struggling with addictions. Obviously, we're all in this field. So I just really love the whole entire presentation from all three of you. Ramki coming from his perspective, and then we have the clinicians who are doing the research. And I love that because I know I'm looking at Vanessa because we love we love the data and we love to see that this is working. So you showing us the charts and the statistics is wonderful. It speaks to us. I'm hoping that we can. I think for me, it's about letting people know how it can affect your mind, because I think we see yoga as only affecting our physical body. So a mind and the mental and mental emotional aspect of it is what I've enjoyed hearing. So thank you.
Just a quick question, Shireen, if you don't mind. Recently I came across behavioral therapy. Can either of you speak to that? I'm not sure exactly what that is, and what it even looks like. Has anyone ever heard of that before? Behavioral yoga?
Behavior therapy is a generalized statement. So we have all different types of behavioral therapy. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, ACT, right? So I just want to go back to what I was saying in regards to that. Yeah, in combination, absolutely, because if we're able to get the patient to emotionally regulate, then we can have a person who's clear and able to, formulate better ideas, make better decisions, and behave in a different way, and actually get down to what's really going on. So I think one of the also big components for us that we've noticed on our unit is that after a yoga intervention, if you have a one-on-one session with a patient, they're more inclined to take advice and listen to what's going on and make better health decisions for themselves. So in turn, if you're feeling better, if there's evidence that you've experienced the yoga intervention or the yoga therapy, and you're seeing the results and your life is improving, then I think your behavior is going to improve with that. I think commitment and consistency and support have to be in place in order for that to be long term, though.
Thank you, Frank. That makes a lot of sense. I never heard of it before, and I was just curious what they were tapping there. Thank you.
This is wonderful to me. I'm sorry I keep hopping on this, but I just think it's also a very more natural way to try to heal somebody. We don't think about breathing and meditating in the yoga form to heal ourselves and our bodies and our minds. So I know that obviously at New Bridge you use medication assistance, which of course is needed. But this sounds like a good way to sustain, after you've detoxed and you're in recovery. It should be mandatory to sustain right, to sustain your sobriety. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm just aware of the time. If we can take one more question, and then I just wanted to just wrap things up with my coalition updates. But if anybody needs any contact information, please reach out to me and I'll get you, I have Ranky's information and I can get Frank's and Gabriella's too. Some people have to leave the meeting, so thanks for being here. I'm going to hand it over to, is there any other question before I move on? Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Vanessa just to give us some quick highlights. And then
I just want to say a couple of things, if you don't mind, before we run.
Sure.
Okay. You mentioned about, pain and physical pain. Pain is not physical. Pain is completely mental. So if you are able to manipulate or manage our mind, the intensity of pain can be brought down. That's why, cancer institutions, like, the world leading cancer institution is in Texas, and they practice yoga extensively, and they really published, they have published many papers on that particular area, number one. Number two, you can completely adapt yoga as a lifestyle by which you are perpetually in a happy, blissful state. Okay, so there is no pain, nothing can affect you. And you do some professionally, personally, miraculous stuff, transformative stuff. Okay, to conclude, yes, we showed you evidence, from 3 perspectives. We also told you how yoga works and how it can help you personally and professionally. Thanks for giving me an opportunity. Over to you, Shireen.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I can't say more than this has been one of the better meetings, and it's so hopeful. You bring hope to the community, to prevention, and to people in recovery. So thank you.
Our data indicates 100% positive outcome, which is incredible, right? It's 100% positive outcome with an average of 29% in decrease of symptoms, which is fantastic. That's what we want, right?
I think what I'm hearing, which is beautiful, is that even as a person who has done yoga and then doesn't do yoga on a regular basis, I always thought it was more about, flexibility and good for your body physically. But what you've enlightened me to is the impact it has on your mind and how it can change your thoughts and calm your emotions and anxieties and help with sleep. And for me, the help with the folks who are in addiction and in recovery and are trying to get that sense of self-esteem and purpose, it just sounds beautiful to me.
But what we've done is kind of unique. We've taken symptoms that were common among substance use disorders and mental health disorders throughout the DSM, and we've integrated specific yoga interventions that focus not only on the body, but on the brain to hit certain parts that will alleviate symptoms. So that's what our research is really about. We're trying to focus on ways that we can hit certain parts of the brain to emotionally regulate and to teach patients new ways to move forward, cope with anxiety, cope with depression, minimize relapse. I mean, from working in a hospital, I could tell you the recidivism rates are incredible. The amount of people that come in and out of treatment, it's alarming, right? So we're trying to incorporate something that they could take with them and that they can practice even when they're not in our facility anymore.